So Scott Snyder, if you know him for writing Batman. But before he started writing comic books, he was a writer of like horror. He wrote a lot of horror short story collections, and he's wrote a lot of horror comic books too, like American Vampire and stuff. But this was his kind of like horror take on mermaids. So when I heard Scott Snyder was doing like a horror mermaid book, I had two thoughts. One of them was that sounds awesome, and two of them was I already know the entire plot of that book, or at least I know the major outline of that book. And I was half right because the first half of this book is what I thought the entire book was going to be. The first half of this book is there's this she's a marine biologist who specializes in like whale calls. And the government brings her into a super secret lab at the bottom of the sea because they found a mermaid. And then the mermaid gets loose on the super secret thing, and it becomes like Alien, and they're all getting picked off one by one by the evil alien mermaid. That's what I thought the entire book was going to be. That's what like the first two issues are. So I was very excited when I found out that there's going to be way more to it than that. The mermaid design is freaky and cool. It looks like it just looks like a fish, man. Like if you saw Cabin in the Woods, you know it's the mermaid from Cabin in the Woods. Um, the most interesting thing about the mermaid or mermaids, I should say, in this book is they have these like they shoot poison or like like neurotoxin or something into your eyes, and it makes you have like weird hallucinations. And Sean Murphy, the artist, gets a lot of mileage out of that. And the writer Scott Snyder gets a lot of mileage out of showing, not telling stuff about the characters via their hallucinations and what they see. That was probably the most unique thing about these mermaids. Like I said, it's only the first half of the story is the trapped, and then there were none one by one getting picked off by the mermaid. The second half goes somewhere completely off the wall, like completely. I was not expecting this at all. At least I wouldn't have been if they didn't show the first page shows what happens in the second half of the story, or at least like hint. Like it's the first page is set in the second half of the story, and then it cuts back to the first, and then this next page is cutting back to the. So I wish they didn't do that. I would have been completely caught off guard by the second half of the story if they didn't show it in the first half. The second half of the story is way more interesting and really cool. So I'm gonna stop right there for the non-spoiler section to say it. It's a really interesting book. It's probably I got the hardcover version. It's probably in softcover now. If you get a chance, I would read it. It's pretty unique. It's really different from most things that I've read, especially the second half. But the ending is the ending. Maybe I have to read it again. The ending just seemed weird and dumb and a little pretentious. And like it felt like Scott Snyder was trying to like be Grant Morrison, but it wasn't working. It didn't work as well for him, or even trying to be a little Jeff Lemire. It still didn't quite work for him. But up until the very ending, the story was great. Okay, spoiler section. The second half of the book is set. I forget how many years in the future, but it's set after the mermaids have already like they've risen the sea level, so like they didn't completely wash out the United States, but they've risen the sea level. So the world is completely fucked up. There's no contact between anyone anymore. All the internet's down. No more texting, no more IMing, whatever you kids do these days. There's no more fresh water. Like the capital of the United States is is like this giant pillar of ice. That's like all the fresh water in the United States, and it follows around this girl whose name is strikingly similar to the marine biologist from the first half of the story. Nothing ever comes of that, but as she's trying to put together a transmitter and like receive and send radio signals. It's set like in this weird like ocean punk like water world kind of environment. She makes her living by catching. Apparently, remember that neurotoxin I was talking about? They kind of like turn that into a drug, and she makes a living by chopping off mermaid heads, or mers as they call them, and selling them to this guy to make drugs, which is a cool idea. And she eventually gets a signal, and this Aside from the ending, the worst part of this movie was the villain who like she's like the governess or something. I forget. She's the president of the world, and she's so like dogmatically obsessed with catching this girl that it's one girl. Just shoot her. Like I don't like it's like she captures her and tortures her. It was just it was very like Bond villain. Like what? Like I'm going to place you in a slow moving elaborate trap and assume that all went to plan. And then and she like ugh. And then when the girl gets away at the end of the book, like the governess shows up with like a huge. Where did she get this huge army from? She shows up with like a huge army to track this one girl. And it's like And she had no character other than like being evil, being like an evil bitch. But yeah, I think they could have used some more fleshing out of her character. Yeah, and then the ending. I'm gonna try to explain the ending. It turns out there's a big to do with the marine biologist in the first half and the main girl in the second half. Oh, quick thing to point out. Eventually, the main girl in the second half hooks up with these pirates, and this guy who's totally supposed to be Jack Sparrow. Like he says "fathom" in the same way that Jack Sparrow would say "savvy." The best thing about him is that he has like a mechanical arm that's like made out of like wood and tape and like a Mickey Mouse glove. It's pretty funny, but he was cool. But the marine biologist from the first half and the main girl from the second half, they can't cry. Like they have something wrong with their eyes. It turns out at the end that humans were put here on Earth. Let me see if I can remember this correctly. Humans were put on Earth because, like, I guess like the Neanderthals or the Cro-Magnons. I'm not an anthropologist. The other thing that Homo sapiens, the other offshoot that weren't Homo sapiens, Neanderthal, whatever. Don't judge me. They were getting, I guess, too smart, and so aliens plopped us down to like kill them. And then it turns out that when we cry, it makes us forget things, and because we're the only animal that cries, and it helps us forget. But then a caveman put like alien technology on his eyes to stop him from forgetting, and that's the signal. And then they go into the alien ship at the end, and the ghost of, or maybe it's not the ghost, maybe the alien technologist kept the marine biologist in the first half alive, and then they all fly away. And then it's like human beings are awful creatures that were put on here on the earth to fuck it up. But at least I'm surfing with dolphins now. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too dumb to get it. Maybe I have to I only read it once, so maybe I have to reread it. But maybe I didn't grasp the subtleties of what Scott was trying to tell me. Other than that, it was really good. I like Sean Murphy's art. He worked with Scott Snyder on American Vampire, and I thought his art was pretty cool. So pick it up, read it if you get a chance, and I'll see you next time.